Thanks for joining us today for our Q3 2022 post-earnings call Q&A session. So we got some questions here that all of you submitted, but to kick things off, I actually want to ask Jon the first question of, tell us more of why you joined Hyliion.
Thanks, Thomas. So for those that don't know, I have a background of about 26 years at Union Pacific Railroad, where I did a lot of things in finance, operations, and technology. And I've actually been following Hyliion for almost a couple years. I think Thomas and I first started talking shortly after the company went public, and so I've had a good chance to follow the company and what it's doing and developing. So I've always been very intrigued by what's going on. This is a unique combination of technology, transportation, and logistics, which are things that I was very much involved with at the railroad. So when the opportunity came up to join the Hyliion team, things worked out, and I started here a couple months ago, so very happy to be here.
Terrific. Well, the first question we have is actually for you, and it is, what is the expected margin on the first 200 Hypertruck ERX production slots and margin potential going forward?
That's a great question. We got that question a couple different forms this morning during our earnings call. As with any new product, when you put it on the line, your costs are not going to be optimized. So we're going to be assembling trucks likely here and potentially in mod centers. We're going to have a workforce that's learning as they go and becoming more efficient over time. We don't get the benefit of high volume costs on components. So initially we think we'll probably be a little upside down on margins, meaning we'll lose a little bit on the trucks, but over time we have a great opportunity to lower costs, and that comes from both component costs as well as our direct costs to put the trucks together and so on. So we didn't give any direct guidance on what that looks like in the near term or long term, other than saying we're going to be very, very focused on turning that red ink to black ink and as quickly as we can. And again, having higher volumes and assembling trucks on an OEM production line, for example, will give us the opportunity to do that.
Great. Next question was, does Hyliion have the initial 200 build slots from Peterbilt? So let's talk a little bit about those first 200 Founders trucks, as we call them today. So we are already working on procuring parts for those vehicles. One of those parts is the chassis, and we are going to be sourcing all 200 of them from Peterbilt. So our supply chain team has done a great job of laying out how long it takes to get certain components, how early we need to place those orders, and making sure that we're going to be able to get them in time to start deliveries of those trucks in late 23, and then have all of the deliveries completed by Q1 of 24, the end of Q1 of 24. So those are in the works and already well underway. Next question was, what do you believe are some of the catalysts for additional orders? So this was another thing we touched on a little bit in today's earnings call. Around our initial sales team focus was get those first 200 production slots solidified, the Founders program, get the fleets involved with it. As we shared, we were actually oversubscribed for interest from fleets of wanting to be in that Founders program. So now that we've come out with showcasing what our pricing is going to be on the Hypertruck ERX, that now gives our team the ability to continue forward with starting to build that backlog of units. So we do expect that we are going to be able to grow that backlog, and we'll be working on that now. Some of the key inflection points in addition to pricing that was discussed today are fleets want to actually experience this in their operations. They want to see it firsthand, get their hands on it, and see how it works in their operations. So as we shared, we've already done the kickoff of control fleet trials with GreenPath Logistics, Wegmans, Detmar, and we're going to continue to expand that as we go into next year. So a lot more excitement to come on that end. Next question was, a lot of people have asked about reservations, lack of movement, agility, transition to orders. Can you add some more color to it? So this kind of goes back to the last question around filling that Founders program. That's been the focus for our sales team. As I said, we were oversubscribed, so we have other fleets that have expressed a lot of interest in it, and we'll look to secure orders on that end as we go forward. The focus has been more on getting orders as opposed to filling the backlog of reservations. And as we go forward, the goal will be to be able to pull reservations into orders as well. This is things that we are working on with fleets as we're going forward here. So I do expect there to be movement on that end, whether it be pulling reservations into orders or growing the backlog of orders. And the fleets that we have gotten the commitments from on reservations are still engaged, still expressing a lot of interest, and are looking forward to going into controlled fleet trials or fleet trials as we go into next year. So we do expect movement on that end as well. All right, so next question was, can you share more details on the current capital position and how does the Carno generator acquisition affect that?
Sure. So I think if you look at our financial results, we have $455 million of cash available, which includes some short-term investments. That compares to about $500 million in the second quarter. So if you think about what happened during the quarter, we spent $15 million and gave it to GE for the Carno acquisition, and then we spent about $30 million just operating the company. And that's been about our run rate, just a little under $30 million a quarter. So we're really well positioned as we go into the next year and continue the development and commercialization of the Hypertruck ERX. And then on Carno, we said, I think at the time of the acquisition, that we would spend somewhere between $75 and $100 million to get to a commercializable product. So we're just kicking that off now. We were starting our first full quarter with the Carno team integrated within Hyliion. And again, we have money to that capital they mentioned, the $455 million is enough to cover that $75 to $100 million that we think it will take to get some kind of a commercializable product. So we're really in a great position from a capital standpoint, especially compared to other companies right now with that kind of money available to continue our mission.
Perfect. And the last question that we had was, what are the plans to scale up production? So I want to just kind of walk through how we envision this progressing over time. So to start, we're going to do the installs of vehicles here in our Austin, Texas headquarters. From there, we see that we'll move to mod centers and then eventually move on to the production line. So we see that we can do hundreds of units out of this facility. When we go from hundreds and starting to go into thousands, that's where mod centers, that's what they're designed for. That's why they exist. They're locations right next to the OEM's factories that can do upfits of new technologies. And then eventually, the OEMs will look to actually pull this into their production line, assuming that we can scale appropriate volumes. And that's what the OEMs look for, right? When they see a new technology, even if it's something they have a ton of confidence in, they want you to start with doing the installs at modification centers, grow your volumes there, and then go on to the production line. Now, the nice thing with this progression is it allows us to continue to stay asset light and capital light. And so, we're able to leverage existing infrastructure that's already out there to do the installs of our technology. So that makes it a lot easier and less capital intensive to get to market. So with it, that concludes all the questions that we had. So appreciate you guys joining the Q&A session today as well as the earnings call, and we look forward to chatting again next quarter.